Okay.
So, hi, Felicity. Welcome again. Thank you so much for making time to chat to me. This is our reflection for our current series, Building Profitable Businesses and Sustainable Organizations. I think what we've had in the last 4 weeks are sessions that were packed with so much information, and it's always nice to then stand and reflect what we've heard and what we are learning and what we are going to take away to implement in our own businesses or lives. So
Mm.
today I am with Felicity, Maduna, and I'm hoping ukuthi reflection yethu will be helpful as we chat. Um, but I'm gonna, before we start, Felicity, gonna let you
Mhm.
introduce yourself. Tell the community,
Mhm.
who are you?
Mhm. Okay. Hi, Sis Bongi, and hi to the community. My name is Felicity Maduna Nduli.
Yes.
Um, I am a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, and I am full-time employed, which I think will kind of lead to the conversation for today as well. But I currently run an architectural practice with my husband. I'm based in Durban. This is a field of study or a field of or industry that I studied, and together with him as well. And we then later got into that as a business, consulting business. But I'll speak about that more as we go ahead. Um, I am also full-time employed in the construction industry, which is a big passion of mine, the built environment and construction industry. And I work as a project manager that manages the implementation of various infrastructure um, projects on site in construction. I'm a mom to two boys, a teenager and a toddler, which is got its own dynamics of its own, and a wife. Um, I think my passion for entrepreneurship is something that has brought me to this community, and I've had an opportunity just to learn so much and also have an opportunity now to bring in my reflections through the series and through my experience and my learnings in entrepreneurship as a whole. So yeah, I think just in a nutshell, that is me. And the rest will unfold as we go into the topic of today.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction. I wouldn't have done it. I'm glad I asked you to do it. Felicity, I think I allow you to chat about just the idea of you being full-time employed and running a business. What are some of the
Mhm.
similarities with what you do and your business? What is your day-to-day business? What do you
Mhm.
guys do at your practice, at your firm?
My practice, okay. So we run a architectural and project management consultancy. Name of our business is Shift 180. We offer um, basically design and project management consultancy for building projects. So whether it is residential or personal homes or commercial for business, um, or even private public sector projects that we get involved in as consultants. And those two are very similar. So what my our business does and what I do as my full-time employment are very similar. I would say the only difference is probably the nature of the works,
Yeah.
but it is both in the construction industry and both in the um, project implementation and project management. What I can say is with Shift, though, it is more on the architectural side as well, the actual designing and sitting and consulting with our clients to understand their vision and sort of help them put this vision together to then have it, implemented.
And I'm speaking and my mic is muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I've lost it.
So I'm trying to then now imagine, obviously, with cons am I losing you now? I don't see your video. Oh, okay. There you go. So I imagine now, Felicity, that with obviously this projects, whether it's a design or just consulting in terms of now managing projects, there's a lot of nitty-gritties that come in. Do you come in as developers? Do you come in as people that come with developers? How does that work? I think my question is leading to how have you been able to make sure that your business is profitable? Obviously, there's many elements to construction. There's different people that come in. How have you been able to make it profitable? And sustainable.
Okay. Um, so when it comes to built environment consulting, I think it's important to maybe paint the picture to say there's quite a lot that you can offer or get involved in. For example, we could either as a consulting service just provide designs. We leave it at that. We provide designs. We give that to our client. They then run with it. But most of the time, you'll find clients will obviously want more than that. They will not know how the construction space will work, how they will implement these designs. And then we would then take it a step further. Then it would be not just providing designs, but now you're also assisting with putting together other professionals in the space that are beneficial to the implementation or the success of this project or idea that they have, which would involve costing from a quantity surveyor or structural elements from engineers. And then you'd have clients that go further to then say, I actually don't even want to be involved with getting a builder. I don't know how to, know where to source a builder and trust them and know if they're going to implement it. Then that's when the project management aspect comes in, where we then source now what you call it, the contractor, and we monitor the contractor and ensure that they are implementing the work on site as per our designs. And then there's other layers now where you can also go beyond, where clients will say, I don't even want to deal with any of these professionals, any of these contractors. I pay you. You manage the costing of all this and the budgeting of this project. So as you can see, different um, depths of the service will then require different pricing, different levels of remuneration for us as the consultants. But one thing I can say with the consulting space, where that you do have a bit of a advantage versus other forms of business, is that there's not a lot of capital that you have to put up front. You use your skills as they are. You can just start with just yourself and your computer. It's a lot of your time, or a lot of your buy-in into the business, or your capital into the business is your time, it's your hours, it's your skill. Which I think that's the first step to note in terms of sustainability. Is that as long as you are breathing and have hours in a day, you can make money. But it does come with the challenge then also. I think this leads to one of the topics on these sessions that we've been having on scaling. You only have so many hours in a day, and in order to make more business or get more opportunities, you then need to start looking at, how do I scale? How do I move from being the only person in this business doing everything from A to Z? So with consulting, then scaling and building a team and partnerships become very important. So for us, what we've done in terms of trying to also keep our overheads low or manage our overheads rather, because we are still quite a very, very, very young business, is to not commit too much to having full-time staff, even though that is the ultimate goal in the long run. But it's to form partnerships and have people consulting with us or under us for certain periods of time. So if we know we have a project, it's of this value, we can commit to a certain amount in terms of um, a workforce or people that are coming in as support for that project. That is easier, or maybe not easier, but it's more strategic from our side rather than saying we'd hire someone for a certain, for a monthly, on a monthly retainer where we would not be sure if the business is able to sustain that over a long period of time. So that's definitely been one of the approaches. It's got its challenges because um, we do believe working on a project basis, you end up spending more on your team than you would if you had staff that are full time. And I think when you have staff that are full time, you can also find other ways that they can support the business that you wouldn't have when you've contracted someone basically for a specific task in the business. So yeah, I think those are the some of the approaches we've used and also what has helped us in terms of scaling and also keeping, I think I did mention keeping overheads very low. And one of those things for us that was very key going into business is not having any debt and also not acquiring any debt in the business. And obviously, I know different business strategies work differently. Like I said, for us, the capital wasn't much of a issue versus other business models where you need capital. So you do have to go into debt. And it's not to say debt is bad, there is good debt if it's going to be working for the business. But for us, there was no need necessarily. It was more about figuring out how do we manage our time so that we are able to then use our hours to build our business. Yeah.
What what you've said now, I love the idea of when you build a team, you're aware that there are times when there are no projects and you
Yes.
have to still maintain the stuff perhaps just sitting around and just that
Yeah.
wisdom to say, hey, we can have people that are still working on their own things in their own time, but they can consult for us now, from time to time.
Mm,
Now that brings me to one of the things we spoke about in the last session about
mm,
collaboration, about alliances, about partnerships.
mhm.
Have you had a chance to work in partnerships?
We have, and
Do you mind
it's
sharing your experience? Because I think
it's okay.
one of the
Mm,
crazy things is trust. That is
yeah.
just such a currency, the most expensive currency, but it's hard to
Yeah.
actually, I don't know, uh, whether it's a race thing or whether it's a cultural thing, whether it's a
Mm,
value, like values kind of a thing. I don't know. So
mm.
can you share your experience and perhaps
Okay.
some
I
of
think
your
mm,
the lessons you've learned there?
mm, mm. Um, I don't know if this has contributed, but as you're talking now, I'm just thinking about it in terms of our nature of the way we work or our business sort of forces you to be in partnership because for a project to be implemented, but I would assume this happens in other industries as well. It's not just exclusive to the built environment. But for a project, for example, as an architect, I can only contribute so much to a success of a project. There needs to be a quantity surveyor to give the numbers. There needs to be an engineer, especially the engineers. We work very close with engineers. I cannot design something and it being built without the contribution of an engineer. So the success of what we implement requires partnerships already. But then when you then take that now to business, we've I think the growth of our business has definitely come from partnerships. They might not be long-term partnerships in the sense that we've sold shares in the business and had someone as a permanent partner, but we've had to, not had to, but a lot of our opportunities have come from partnerships. I was noting as I was just thinking about about this conversation that and I was noting as I was noting I realized we've actually in our scaling of our business we haven't done any marketing or any um paid advertising. All our work and all our projects and business have come through referrals and through partnerships. So I've seen quite a positive aspect of that. But when you speak about the trust and the culture, you're definitely right. I think something that stood out to me in these sessions, I don't know if it was one of the first sessions with Ubabsmonelo Mbata. Yes, and he was talking about team. I think he was the one talking about teamwork and that you need other people to build something bigger than you. And I think that's something that touches on what you're talking about culture and trust. And it's actually more difficult than we think. Because with us, we do have that idea that if we have a third person in this business, one, we are spouses and partners. So we feel like sometimes there's gray areas that if we had a third person in this business, it would really scale bigger than what it is now. But it goes back to that being able to let go of a certain part of the business and trust that you're going to bring in someone who you're going to give some level of authority and power in this business to be able to make decisions and that it's still going to work out. So I would say we have had partnerships, but I think also we've reserved some of that to ourselves in terms of opening ourselves up fully to go into partnerships that we know could possibly scale the business much bigger than this, and it would involve us losing some aspect of power in the business. Yeah.
That's interesting. You reminding me of the one, is it Melanie, who started Canva with her
Mm.
boyfriend, and then they brought in a friend, and the friend is the
Mm.
third wheel. And he carries
Yeah.
such weight in the business because he's an engineer who looks after all these engineers that are maintaining this big, because
Yeah.
I think I
Mm.
think I think Melanie is a designer, but who's this guy? Now I think Cliff
Don't
is
know
the
the name.
husband, the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but I'm just thinking the dynamics of being a family business and then having to trust another person to come into the business. It's quite interesting. It carries
Yeah.
possibly carries a different dynamic altogether than you just being individuals that are coming from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Felicity, I'm interested to hear um, the industry you're in is male
Mm.
dominated. I'm interested to hear just your experience and how you found courage as a woman in the space. I saw
Mm.
you celebrating one of the projects you did with the municipality.
Mm.
With the, is it, what do you call this thing? But the trains.
Yes,
What was the name of
yes.
the project?
The name of the
Project. What's that?
recovery. No, not
Was it
recovery of the of stations, of station
I think it was
buildings.
the recovery of the stations. Yes, I
Mm,
think
mm.
so.
Opasa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I was just excited to, when we look at these industries, there is obviously that intimidation that comes, and you're thinking, am I going to survive in this industry? And are people not going to give me a hard time, especially you are leading a project,
Mm, mm,
and you have to take up space, not just as a woman, but as a leader, and you are set yourself like that.
yeah,
So how
yeah.
has that been?
It's got it has its challenges. It definitely does. I think women lead differently to men, which sometimes sometimes you get into a space and people just get it, but sometimes they don't. But what I really have appreciated and I lean to is seeing women in male dominated industries leading from their um, female instincts, if I can put it that way, from
Yeah.
a more like nurturing but instinctive I always say woman intuition plays a huge role in how you lead. You look at a situation and you just make sense or figure out a solution that maybe a man wouldn't have been able to look at it that way or view it that way. And in when just observing women lead like that has given me a bit of courage to understand that you don't have to get there and pretend to be something you're not, or pretend to lead from a position that or a characteristic that you don't have, you know. So I think the older I get, the more I just make peace with understanding that I'm not going to lead the same way that a man will, and figure out or try to, surround myself with women that I see are leading in the way that I aspire to lead in and are doing very well at it and are leading big teams. I met a lady who sits, I think, no, she doesn't sit. She's the president of one of the engineering bodies, professional bodies. And she she was telling me that her deputy is a much older white man. And whenever they walk into a room, people always assume it's the other way around. She's the deputy who was probably brought in for diversity reasons. But she was just sharing how she has built such a good trust in her team that they're the first ones to say, no, 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 this is my boss. This is the person I answer to. And that has, given her that confidence in leading. And she hasn't had to do it as a man, Something as simple as dressing. That's something we don't consider in male dominated spaces. There's those questions that you'll have in your mind to say, do I wear a dress? Does it make me look like I'm a leader in a construction project, or does it make me look like I'm just too girly here in this position? So things like that. And she was just saying she wears dresses. It's like her everyday look. She doesn't need to wear pants to feel like she's leading in a male dominated space. So just being around women like that and leaning into that has helped me. But yeah, it does have its challenges.
I love what you're saying about not trying to be someone you're not,
Yeah.
and not trying to change anything um,
Mm,
that you're not. Anyway, the leadership side of things is amazing, because I mean, if you are able to retain who you are and present it as who you are with confidence, then you get the same respect that you respected yourself with. You
true.
respected yourself enough to say, I don't have to hide. I'm good enough to be out there in
Mm,
this male dominated thing, and I don't have to be afraid of being
mm,
feminine, have that intuition of a mom, of a sister, and you just ride on it, because that's your superpower in the space. I love what you've just said. I am looking at the fact that I didn't say I was going to ask you this question, but I am going to ask you,
mm,
because you did mention it when you introduced yourself. You are
mm-hmm,
a mom to two children, a teenager and a toddler. Now, someone who's working full time, and someone who's
Mm.
running a business, and someone who is a wife and a mom. How do you do it? So on a typical day, how does Felicity's day look like? On a typical day, this awesome leader who's killing it, at work, who's killing it in business, how does your day look like?
To be honest, I wing it on most days, if I'm being 100% honest. Um, and before I go into the day, I want to add that my typical day or my days are filled with a lot of how do I put it? I don't want to say questioning, but always trying to self-introspect to say, have I done the best I can here? Could I have done better here? Could I've, and a lot of the times, there's no ways you're going to have done the best in all the areas. There's going to be areas where each day here you feel like it's almost like when you win on the one, it comes at a cost on another one, and it's something that I'm still learning to accept. It's something like, for example, if I am going to say on a Sunday evening, you know what, which is what happened last weekend, Sunday. I said, you know what, I am going to be a proper mom and wife, and I'm going to cook a nice Sunday dinner and make effort and go all out. And that meant that on Monday morning, I walked into my meeting not as prepared as I would have liked to. And and it's something that you have to make peace with, to say, this is the best I can give to this area. And it means another area is going to suffer a little bit. And I don't want to say you balance. I think you just in that day do the best you can. But I definitely think having a support structure is very important. I will say that as much as my husband is also my business partner, the support from the point of view of, oh no, don't worry, we'll see what we eat for supper, or the guilt will come from me, because there's that innate thing where you feel like, okay, I need to be doing this, but it's not any pressure from family. Yeah, sometimes you feel like you could have spent more time with your kids, you could be doing more. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of, in that day, you show up the best way you can. If it's in the workspace for that day, if it's in the business, or if it's for your family, then yeah, yeah.
I love how you've answered this question, Felicity. Do you know how much entrepreneurs try to have a balance? And it's such an illusion.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I don't believe in the balance. I don't, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could possibly balance
Yeah. You
everything.
could have
Yeah.
everything, but the balance is impossible.
Yeah.
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 I learned from another lady. I can't remember her now. I
Mm,
went into this networking session and she was the speaker there. And she was just
mm,
saying how they've had been with her husband for more than 20 years in the business. And she was saying she learned the hard way that there's no such thing as balance. But she came up with a strategy to know what would be in the moment, what would be a rubber ball, and what would be the glass ball. So, and you can't say your family is the glass ball. It can't be a glass ball throughout all
all
seasons.
the mm,
Perhaps it could be your job that is a glass ball at the moment, and you can't let it go because if you drop it, it will crack and you won't be able to mend it. Perhaps your family could be a rubber ball while you're sorting out work, and sometimes it's work that should be a rubber ball. You literally just let it go to grab your family because at that moment that's the most important thing. And to be at peace that everything that you've dropped, it will drop as a rubber ball. It would come back to you. It will find its own strength to come to you. Oh, that liberated me so much. So instead of crying over the balance, I don't have to, I just need to prioritize what is important right now. What is the glass ball that I need to protect? What is the rubber ball that I can, you know, have a leap of faith and say, I'm going to release you for the moment. It's amazing how that brings a perspective to say, hey, not everything is urgent. It might be important, but it might not be urgent. Or it might be urgent, but not necessarily important. And that urge to say, oh, I need to do it. Maybe you're just cracking your head for something that's really not important. You don't even have to be worried about that now. The family, they can go with pizza today. It's okay if there's no dinner. Relax, chill out. Take just 2 hours to yourself and rest. No kid is going to die just because they ate pizza for supper. Relax. And such a
Mm.
inspiration. So thank you so much,
And I think
Felicity. Do you want to add something?
yes, yes, yes. I was going to say, and I think that that analogy of it's living in the moment and having peace in the moment. And I think it's something that is so good for us if we practice to be in the moment where we are, whether like you're saying, whether at that time the glass ball is your work and you need to focus on it, or it's your family and you need to focus on it. Because I think a lot of the times, just in general, we're always worried about the next thing. And that's essentially what this juggling is about. You're holding this ball, but you're looking at the one that's coming down and so forth. And you're never in the moment of what you're doing right now. And I think sometimes having all these things to do forces you because it's impossible to do them all at the same time, to then focus on what you can do now. And like you're saying, trust that you will be ready to do the next thing when it becomes the glass ball. Yeah.
Giving yourself grace, because at the end of the day, we do want to build these businesses and we don't want to compromise and say, I have a family that I need to take care of. I can't start a business. Or I have a career that I'm working on. I can't start a business. We can still have these things, especially with the crisis we're on. If it's
Yeah.
not the crisis of unemployment, it's the crisis of affordability. Life is becoming, you know, uh, unaffordable for someone who just saying, I'm going to have this one stream of income
Yeah.
and depend on it. And so we do want, I think, through this series to encourage people to be intentional about starting business and not just start businesses as a side hustle that you just want extra cash, but you want to build a business that is profitable and that is sustainable over time, something that your
Mm.
children and your children's children can inherit. And those things, as much as sometimes we look at businesses that have lived 100 years and we think, that is out of reach. Well, they started somewhere. They started
True.
somewhere.
True.
So that's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Mrs. Nduli, I thank you for
Mm.
your time. And I'm hoping
Thank
we
you.
will
Thank
have a chance to bring in Nduli to talk about running family businesses in the future. There are other couples in the community that I think it would be nice to hear from them as well. And just
you.
how
Mm.
they are actually able to run it because, hey, there's just different dynamics with different setups of businesses. So thank you so much for your time and your insight and your openness to share your story. We appreciate you and thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This was actually so lovely. And just to say, the series as a whole for me personally has alivened my entrepreneur spirit. And that's another thing that I think is a good discussion to go into for the future is the reality of doing both. Let me not say trying because you're doing both, being employed and running a business because it requires two separate, not separate, but different ways of thinking. And one can suffocate the other because you are in the space where you are supposed to be innovative, strategic, thinking big and trying to solve problems. And then you're also in the space where sometimes you try to operate in that way and you're reminded that, hey, this is not your organization. Here, there's a structure. Here, you answer to this person. There's a hierarchy. And then if you take that mentality sometimes to your business of waiting for someone to tell you what to do, so it's almost like different worlds or different ways of operating. So sometimes my entrepreneurship side can feel like it's suffocating. And I think this series has just, brought a bit of that excitement back to say, hey, this is actually the bigger picture here. It's scaling, it's providing employment, it's solving a problem that is bigger than you, and it's building something that can be generational, like you're saying. So thank you for the series. And I hope it's done the same for other entrepreneurs who are trying to do both. And that we just keep, pressing on to see these businesses become something that is beyond just ourselves.
That's a beautiful wrap up right there. Thank you so much, Felicity.